My wife was almost murdered as an unborn child. Her mother went in for a procedure at the doctor's office when she was pregnant. At the time, she didn't know that she was pregnant. But the doctor learned of her pregnancy after the procedure was performed, and during that procedure, he put her under anesthesia. He went on to tell her that the anesthesia could have caused harm to the baby, and he encouraged an abortion because of it. I'm so blessed today that her mom decided not to do that and opted out of the doctor's rash decision. Abortion wasn't the answer, and it's still not today. I'm a follower of Christ, and I value the value that God puts on our human life. When I became aware of how out of control abortion has become, I decided to learn about it so I could inform others of this heinous act and teach them more about it. I want to talk to you today about the murderous act of abortion and ways that you can stand against it. To make sense of this subject, today we'll discuss how many abortions are going on in the United States today, the disaster and the problems that it's leaving in people's lives as a result, and how we can stand against it to show God's value on human life. So what does abortion look like in the United States? The CDC stated that in 1970, 193,000 abortions occurred that year. That's a really large number, but in 2008, our most recent study, Guttmacher Institute stated that 1.2 million abortions occurred that year. That's a 1 million count difference. It's quite a staggering number, and we're obviously going the wrong direction. So what could be the cause of this? Why is this occurring? When we look at the decline of church going and whatnot, there was a statistic given by intothyword.org that in 2007, in a poll given that year, half of the churches in the United States that year, or the previous 2 years, didn't receive any new members. So they're not equipping people, they're not able to inform people of God's value on our life, thus the growing problem throughout the United States today. So now that we have an understanding of the nature of this problem, let's see exactly why it's a problem. If you talk to a person who's had an abortion, there's probably going to be a lot of deep hurt, more times than not. And it's not something that's only affected them, but also people that are around those people that are also affected by that decision. Ann Speckert, an expert on the subject, said that approximately 60% of women who have an abortion contemplate suicide. 28% of those women actually attempt it. This is a very startling fact. This is hard to take in. So we need to take measures to try to prevent this. It's good for us to know that abortion is a great threat to God's value on the life that He so cherishes, and know how it destroys lives in the process. What do we need to do to stop this home-wrecking, heartbreaking, and life-taking disaster? One of the best things that we can do is pray. And I think this is one of the things that's often overlooked because it seems so small, but it's actually so big. And God's ready and willing to move, but unless we're praying, He's not moving. So we need to be praying every day. We need to be God's tools, so it's essential for us to be available for people considering abortion. And we need to be considerate and be careful not to condemn, but to encourage. And we need to stress and teach them that God values life at the point of conception, as stated in Jeremiah 1:5. In our discussion, I want to make sure that we're a voice. We need to be that voice in society, in the community, and we don't want to waver in our stance on this issue. In our discussion today, we've identified the amount of abortions that are taking place, how they're destroying people's lives, and what we can do to stand against it. I wanted to talk to you today about this subject and about this murderous act of abortion and offer ways that we can stand against it. I hope that you've learned from this and you've learned some things about it and how it disregards God's value on life. And today I would like to close with a small excerpt from a poem that a woman wrote who had an abortion as a teenager. This woman, in the meantime, has become a Christ follower and has found that writing this poem has given her some peace about the abortion that she had previously in her life. I'd like to attribute this to Debbie Leeds. It's a woman that wrote the poem, and I'm only going to read a small excerpt. I want to leave that as the last thing that I've said, so it'll rest on your ears, so you can let that sink in and let God speak to your heart. And the poem goes like this, the small excerpt. What were you doing in me when your last heartbeat came? You were 100% dependent on me.